10 ani de agresiune rusă. Cu asta se confruntă Ucraina de când Federația Rusă a decis să ocupe treptat porțiuni din teritoriul statului suveran. Pașii făcuți de ruși erau evidenți. A durat mai mult până când lumea liberă s-a convins că asistă la un atac bine coordonat. Din momentul în care s-au luat măsuri, Rusia suportă consecințe serioase, dar încă nu vrea să oprească războiul. Ihor Prohopciuc este trimisul Kievului la București. Vorbim împreună despre cea mai complicată situație din Europa. Sunt Cristina Cileacu, începe Pașaport Diplomatic. Ihor Prohopciuc, Ukrainian ambassador in Bucharest, welcome back to Diplomatic Passport.
Good afternoon to you, Christina, good afternoon to all viewers of this program. I'm very glad to be back.
Ambassador, we are at 10 years since Russia illegally annexed the Crimean Peninsula, and also we are entering year number 3 since they launched the full-scale invasion over your country.
Indeed, this year marks 10 years since Russia first invaded into the Ukrainian territory, and it was the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. I would remind the viewers that on the 26th of February 2014, the Russian troops seized the administrative buildings of the Autonomous Republics of Crimea. They blocked Ukrainian military installations, and they lined up the streets on the peninsula. All of these troops were without insignia, which gave the grounds for the Russian authorities to deny that they belonged to the Russian Federation. And it was a very clear example of how Russians use deception when they carry out their military operations. At that point, it was not only Ukraine, but I think many of our partners who could not really fully apprehend the extent of Russia's territorial ambitions and ambitions of territorial expansion. Again, I will need to remind the viewers that immediately after the Russians invaded Crimea, it was not clear whether they would wish to attempt annexation, which they did in March of 2014. And it was the first case in the history of Europe since the end of World War II when one state attempted illegal annexation of a territory of a neighboring state. It showed very well how far the Russian regime was ready to go in terms of the flagrancy of violation of the norms of international law, grabbing by force the territory of a different state. And in fact, the Russians did not stop there, because it was immediately in March when many calls were made on the Russian authorities to discourage them from further interference into Ukrainian affairs, and also the expansion of their intervention in the east of Ukraine. And this did not stop them. And of course, as we very well know, after 8 years of hostilities in the east, of many efforts to impose Russian will on Ukraine, on Ukrainian people by different means: political, diplomatic, economic, military, and when they failed, they started the full-scale invasion. So basically, I would say that these 10 years, they were kind of the process, they represented a process of kind of better coming to understanding of what the ambitions of territorial expansionism are and how they are seen by the Russian authorities.
10 years of aggression against Ukraine coming from the Russian Federation, and still there are countries that are supporting in this endeavor the Russians. What message has Ukraine to this country?
What we have at the moment is an overwhelming majority of the countries throughout the world that very clearly see the essence of this war and the need to act together with the aim of reinstating the respect for international law. And I'm basing this statement on the results of respective vote in the United Nations General Assembly regarding the on the resolution of the United Nations Charter Principles underlying the comprehensive, just and lasting peace in Ukraine. So the overwhelming majority of countries around the world, and there were 141 countries which voted in support of this resolution, they do see that the agreed principles enshrined in the UN Charter work in the interests of all countries throughout the world. This is a very important message.
There are these countries that are backing Russia in its task to destroy Ukraine. There are countries that are doing a lot of money, using this war in their own benefit and not being interested enough on the UN Charter and other rules that are international and the rest of us respect.
Not openly are kind of conducive to the ongoing aggression through what they would claim a neutral stance. And this is a situation where it is important not only to express political solidarity and adopt political resolutions, but also undertake very specific measures of practical significance that would undermine the channels which are used to support the aggressor state. And this is exactly the area where we see there more needs to be done in terms of strengthening the sanctions regime which was introduced upon the Russian Federation, but also dealing with the instruments that help Russia to circumvent the sanctions. This is the area which is very, very closely examined. We know that since the start of the full-scale invasion, the Russians have tried to adjust and adapt to the sanctions regime, and they found some channels and territories and states through which they were able to circumvent the sanctions. So this would be the way to send a very clear message to all, that it is not only that we proclaim our adherence and commitment to international law, but we are willing to act in practical terms in defense of international law.
Ukraine is standing against a very strong aggressor, and the help coming from the free world is declining. How can you deal with that?
Today, as we meet, what we have is, since the start of the Russian full-scale invasion, was a very strong solidarity demonstrated by the democratic countries in support of Ukraine, which was also translated into very specific and large-scale military, economic, financial and humanitarian assistance. As the war continues, the Ukrainian needs, they remain high, and we very much welcome the recent decision that was taken by the European Council in relation to setting up the Ukraine facility with the amount of 50 billion euros that will be disbursed for Ukraine, and that provides predictability in terms of support to our country.
But these monies will not be used as a military support. It's important to mention.
This will not be used as the military support, but this will be a very significant input to maintain the economic and financial stability in the country, and also to help the government of Ukraine to meet some of its social sector responsibilities. And faced with the challenges that Ukraine continues to face in connection with the ongoing Russian aggression, this kind of support is also of extremely great significance.
Absolutely, yeah.
So this is a very good sign of ongoing solidarity and practical support. We also have commitments from other partners, from other donors in relation to support to Ukraine, and we also expect that the US support will also be finalized. I think while there are different other challenges that emerge in the world and which may also catch attention of international actors, of the governments, it is important again to stay fully focused on the challenges of Russian aggression against Ukraine and continue to be fully committed to supporting Ukraine. As I say, the stakes are much higher than Ukraine, and it is in concert with the partners, with the coalition of Ukrainian partners that we can defeat a very formidable aggressor as the Russian Federation.
I think this message of unity and support for Ukraine is understood by the free world, by all the democracies that want to remain democracies. But then again, there is a bleak scenario coming from US, the possibility of having a change in the American administration with new ideas. This might happen, we don't know, but it's one of the scenarios. Is this possibility taking into account in Ukraine as well?
Let me say that, and again I would say what I said before in this interview, that for Ukraine, Russia's invasion is an existential threat. So Ukraine and Ukrainians will fight. And definitely Ukraine is also developing its own capabilities to counter the Russian aggression and also be able to win this war. We are doing so relying on our own capabilities, on our resources, and also with significant support from our partners. Of course, we also take into account different scenarios that may develop. But let me say that for now, the United States have been a staunch supporter of Ukraine. We enjoyed bipartisan support in the US Congress, and such support remains in the US Congress both on the part of the Republican and the Democratic parties. We believe that what Ukraine and Ukrainians are doing, they do defend freedom, they do defend democracy, and these are the values which have been strongly promoted by the United States and which are held dearly by the Americans. So our expectation is that the electoral process in the United States will go as it will, but the United States will continue to stand with Ukraine and support the country in its fight for freedom and democracy.
Your president, Volodymyr Zelensky, operated some changes at the level of the top military. How are they received, those changes, at the level of first the army and second of all at the level of population?
The recent changes that were carried out by the president were executed as part of his presidential prerogatives as commander-in-chief. The commanders who have been appointed to different positions, they are well known in the armed forces, in the Ukrainian society, as they held the commanding positions from these very first days of the big war. Therefore, they're well known.
Is the president and the population believing that with the new people in charge of the army will have better chances to win this war against Russian Federation?
I would repeat that these are not what one might think new people. These are people who fought and held commanding position in the armed forces since the very first days of the big war. Speaking about the General Syrski, who was appointed the chief of the armed forces, he was in charge of a number of very successful military operations, both around Kiev and near Kharkiv. So he's very well known, just like other generals who were appointed to different positions. So I think that preserves a very high degree of confidence, again, in the commanders, in their thinking, in their military thinking and planning. And definitely our expectation are that whatever changes are made, they will take us closer to defeating the enemy.
Besides the real war that Ukraine is fighting with the Russian Federation, there is also the informational war that your country has to win, and the Russian propaganda is restless, including in Ukraine, especially in the front line and in the areas that are under Russian occupation. Do you see any solution for this war as well to be won?
The Russian Federation invests very big resources into its propaganda instruments. And basically these propaganda instruments, they're directed primarily towards the domestic audience in Russia. And based on the recent more repressive measures that are taken inside Russia, it also gives an indication that the propaganda is not entirely effective. And another audience is, of course, the foreign audience towards this propaganda is directed. Ukraine has developed its own experience in countering the Russian propaganda, and in our view, it is necessary to foil the channels through which this propaganda is disseminated. So among the measures that we took was to stop the broadcast of Russian propaganda channels, also to stop the activities of Russian social media networks, which are used not only for dissemination of propaganda, but also they can be used also to undermine security. And these are the lessons that we are willing to share with our partners, because we do see that the Russian propaganda poses significant threats throughout the world, having the aims of sowing discontent, sowing divisions, radicalizing societies, and exploiting difference in societies to the benefits of supporting the Russian propaganda narratives.
And do you think this war will last for how long?
I would not go into predicting of how long the war would last. But let me say that duration of the war, of the hostilities, depends on the level of support that we receive from our partners, and as was repeatedly emphasized by President Zelensky, by Ukrainian government officials, we have entered the stage in this war where Ukraine must possess a technological advantage over the enemy. We will not have more manpower than Russia. We will not have more guns than the Russians have. But what we must have is better technology, more effective technology that will provide to Ukraine an advantage in this warfare. When we were receiving such technologies in the past months, Ukrainian armed forces have shown that they can use them very effectively and they can prevail on the battlefield. This is what we need, and this will have a very significant effect on the course and the duration of the war. More weapons to Ukraine, more sophisticated and technological equipment, faster delivery will have a very strong impact in terms of reducing the time of the war and also diminishing the hardships that the Ukrainians have to endure.
Ambassador, thank you for this interview.
Thank you very much for this interview, and let me express a strong appreciation of the support that Ukraine has been receiving and is receiving from Romania as a state and also from the Romanian people in this fight. This support is highly appreciated and is dearly held and remembered.
Atât pentru astăzi, dar rămânem în continuare online pe pagina de Facebook a emisiunii și pe contul nostru de X. Revenim cu subiecte noi din lumea diplomației și a politicii externe vinerea viitoare de la 11:30 și reluare sâmbătă după miezul nopții. La revedere!